Dear friends, today, 76 years ago, on June 22nd, 1941, there was a very tragic day in our history. The day when Nazi Germany invaded Soviet Union during the World War II. Today, Eurasia Diary speaks with Remko, who is from Netherlands, the country where many Soviet soldiers were buried, but still many of them listed as missing. But thanks to the efforts of our today's hero, Remko, more than 20 of them have already been identified. Dear Remko, please tell us about your research. Where did you get the idea of investigating the graves and documents of Soviet soldiers killed in fascist concentration camps? And where did you start your work?
Well, 18 years ago I was a student of journalism, and I got the opportunity to take part in an exchange program, and that brought me to Moscow. And I was curious about this new country for me, and I fell in love with the strange, wonderful city of Moscow, and also fell in love with a Russian girl. And when I came back to the Netherlands, I was told here that in my hometown, Amersfoort, there's a complete cemetery with 865 war victims from the Soviet Union. And I had never ever heard of that before. And I found it very difficult to accept that 865 war victims are buried in my hometown and the relatives are not informed. I understood that all those soldiers were actually missing in action, so all 865 were still missed by their relatives in all the former Soviet republics. And I felt it was my moral obligation to try to identify those soldiers and to trace their relatives.
As far as we know, among the graves you have examined, there were also the graves of Azerbaijani soldiers, and you have already established the identities of two of them with the help of specialists. Tell us more about this.
It took me many years to find out the identity of soldiers, and I managed to trace relatives for the first time only in the year of 2000. And from that moment on, I understood it was possible to find relatives, to identify soldiers. And I carried on doing this work, and during the research I traced at least two soldiers from Azerbaijan. One is Babish Babayev. He is from a region called Augustki Rayon in Russian, and the village is called Kumlak. And we have still not traced his relatives, and I don't think anyone has properly searched in the village where he was from. So I really hope people will help us find the relatives of Babish Babayev. And the second soldier, let me check so I won't make any mistakes, is Andrei Antonovich Zakharov. So he is probably from Russian descent, but he was living in Baku. He was born in the region of Penza, and he was also brought to the war from Baku. So if anyone is connected to him or his wife is Klavdia Mironovna, and they were living on Ulica Zavokzalnaya in Baku. So if anyone knows them, then please let them come forward so we can tell the relatives that their soldier, their father, grandfather, who was missing in action, is actually buried in the Netherlands.
And are there some soldiers from Ukraine?
Yes, certainly. Many, actually. I have traced, I think, about 40 or 50 families even in Ukraine, in all kinds of different regions, and we're still searching for several families in Ukraine as well. And recently we have managed to find the relatives of Yatsunenko, one of the soldiers from Ukraine, who's buried here, and we have informed them that their grandfather is actually here. Yeah.
Remko, you have established the identities of many soldiers by examining documents in Russia. Do you have planned to carry out this work in Azerbaijan?
The short version of what I did was trying to search for documents in archives, not only in Russia, but mainly in Germany and in Holland and even in America, and certainly also in Podolsk and in Moscow. But it's not possible for me to travel to each region or each village to search myself, because that will be very expensive and would be very time consuming. But of course I would be very happy to come to Azerbaijan to execute this search or to help searching when I'm invited doing so. But I'm doing most of what I'm doing in my own time and with my own expenses, with the help of a small foundation in the Netherlands that we created ourselves. But I really depend on local people helping me out, or on governments inviting me to come over and do the search myself. But I would be very happy to come to Baku one more time. I've been there once and it's a wonderful city. I've seen quite some places in Azerbaijan during that 1 week, and I'm sure I would be glad to be back.
Remko, tell us more about the results of your research in general. How many Soviet soldiers are buried in Holland, and what gaps and challenges do you have during your work?
Well, there are 865 Soviet war victims buried in Amersfoort. It was a collecting point after the war, so the cemetery was built only in 1947, 1948. They exist of different groups. The first group are 101 Soviet prisoners that were brought to the concentration camp in Amersfoort. The Netherlands had about 3 concentration camps, and Amersfoort was one of the main ones. And they all died in the camp. Most of them were executed. And unfortunately, still we don't know who those 101 soldiers were. According to eyewitnesses, most of them were actually from Central Asia, especially from Uzbekistan. So this is the main challenge I still have. The second group exists of 691 soldiers who were in German prisoner of war camps, and in most cases I established their identity, and almost 200 families have now been traced and informed that their fathers, husbands, grandfathers are no longer missing in action, but actually buried here. So that part of my research was very successful. More than 200 families have been traced. And the third group is a very different story once again, but I won't bother you with that.
Remko, we know that you wrote a book, A Child of the Field of Glory. Tell our viewers and readers more about your book.
Yeah, well, I was a very young guy when I started doing this. I didn't have any connection with the Soviet Union, with Russia or Azerbaijan. I didn't have any connection with World War II, and somehow it totally changed my life, because for the last 18 years I've been doing this research, and I've been tracing relatives, and I met my wife thanks to my research. And just to give you one example, I worked in Moscow for 8 years. Thanks to the research that I've done. So the book is not just about the cemetery and about the soldiers, it's also about how it changed my life. So it's very personal, but also it tells the story of one soldier, one family in particular, the family of Vladimir Botyenko from Simferopol in Crimea. And it follows the whole story of what happens to this family during the war and after the war, because the war doesn't finish when peace is settled. He was always missed in action, and only in 2000 I managed to trace their relatives. And this story is very touching, and my personal story plus his story, they form the book, which in Russian is called Dитя Полислава.
Remko, and at last, what will be your message in this day, in this tragic day in our history? What would you say to our viewers now?
Well, you know, wars have always happened, and it will probably still continue to happen. But the most important thing is that we try to understand each other and try to keep the dialogue going. So I would advise people to get more information, and if possible independent information or information from different sources about everyone, especially your enemies, because it's never black or white. And we need to do that. We need to talk with each other. We need to see each other in the eyes, and we need to try to prevent wars from happening. And only people can do that. And I hope the people of Azerbaijan and Ukraine, as you mentioned, will help us, the Dutch and other countries, to establish that.
Oh, thank you for such words, dear Remko. Thank you for interview. Dear Remko, thank you so much for your interview. We wish you good luck, and we hope to see you in Baku very soon.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We will keep in touch with you.
Great. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.